The Alabasta saga is a very good example of one of my main problems with One Piece, which is inconsistency. Now, inconsistency is a pretty open-ended term, as it comes in a lot of different forms. Look, when you're a guy working at Shonen Jump, basically writing one big story for an extended period of time, every week with only some help here and there from assistants or editors, you're bound to run into some form of inconsistency. For Hunter x Hunter, it was its art. For Naruto, you could say maybe it's world building. And for One Piece, it was its arcs. A major talking point regarding the pacing of One Piece is how the story is not very good at keeping a consistent momentum of quality arcs. Like I covered in my prologue video, you'll go from Enies Lobby, considered by many to be one of the best arcs in the series, and the next thing you know, you're in Thriller Bark, which is considered one of its worst. It's kinda jarring how in the last video I said that. Like I said before, Lockdown does make you really excited for what's to come next. It really feels like things are picking up steam, and then the follow-up arc is Reverse Mountain that kind of slows things down. Now, it's not that these arcs don't contribute to the broader story. Apparently, from little whispers I've heard, some of the worst arcs in the series are really important to the current saga. What I mean is that the general momentum and feeling of progression as a reader is being slowed down, and certain things don't feel like they're going to be relevant until way later, which is great for world building, but not great for the overall pacing. Now, Reverse Mountain. I'm sure in retrospect this will be a really touching payoff, but just reading this arc for the first time, I thought it was fine. I do like Laboon, and the way the arc ended was pretty touching, but the arc as a package felt kinda more mundane than most arcs, if that makes any sense. There's really not much to say about this one, I just didn't enjoy myself too much. But what this arc does do is introduce I guess one major character for this saga, which will lead into Whiskey Peak, a much better arc. I really do like this one. Seeing Zoro get to fight a bunch of ambushers is very entertaining, but most importantly, we get properly introduced to our primary villain group for this saga, the Baroque Works. I feel like we're getting back on track with things. We're setting up the major conflict of this saga, as well as the primary destination, the Alabasta Kingdom. We're informed about the Baroque Works and their leader, Mr. Zero, as well as their plan to take over Alabasta. This arc also properly introduces two major characters. One was introduced as Baroque Works member, Miss Wednesday, in Reverse Mountain, but is actually a girl named Vivi who is directly tied to our destination as she is the princess of Alabasta and now has to save her country by rebelling against the group she worked for. And we get to meet Robin, and we get to see that this fan-favorite character, the canonical mother of the Straw Hats, apparently used to be part of the villain group? Things are connecting very smoothly. There's a good momentum as we journey our way to Alabasta. We're getting somewhere. After we've finally entered the Grand Line, we're setting sail to our new epic adventure. Oh, wait, no. First we gotta stop by Little Garden. Okay. I don't like Little Garden. I really want to like this arc. This is easily the coolest location we've seen so far. It's like this prehistoric looking wilderness with giants? That's awesome. And I know you fucking One Piece enthusiasts are gonna be like, well, this contributes to the final saga because Elbaf. Great. But I still don't fucking care because it doesn't make this lame-ass fight any less lame! So here we are introduced to the other members of the Baroque Works. We have Dumb, Dumb, Dumber, and Stupid. It amazes me how seriously the Straw Hats are when the main antagonist is this fucking nerd, just like this actual fucking dork, bro. And I'm gonna be honest, it kind of reads less like a battle shonen and more like a corny Saturday morning cartoon with like, honestly, just kind of corny dialogue. It's not the worst thing ever. There are some cool moments. The one that most people will point to is this scene where Sanji is outsmarting the head of the Baroque Works, Mr. Zero, in a phone call. And I do think Mr. Three's power is pretty cool. He's just not very threatening. Overall, this was just not it. It's going down here with Syrup Village. I'm sorry. So, we hit a bit of a road bump, but that's okay, because that's just part of the journey, guys. So now that we're done with Little Garden, we're going to the Alabasta Kingdom. So to Alabasta we go. God damn it. So to Drum Island we go. And this arc is actually pretty good. Wow, I like it a lot. I mean, the main antagonist of this arc, being Wapol, is still pretty bad. Yeah, so a lot of the villains in One Piece are very much, I'm the bad guy. like, in a generically evil way, like cartoony, I hate you, everyone is beneath me type villain, which I think blends a bit better in a series like One Piece that is very cartoonish down to its presentation, but it's still kind of lame in my opinion. Even though we're not super far into the series, from everything I've seen and heard, it's pretty clear that villains aren't really Oda's strong suit. I'm sure we'll get to some great ones later, hint hint, nudge nudge, but villains don't really seem to be a core draw of the series, at least when compared to some of its competitors like Naruto, Hunter x Hunter, or even the Gray Man. But the great thing about this arc is we're introduced to Chopper, and we get to see his backstory, a sad tale about him and his adoptive father, this got me feeling things, man. It was dark, dramatic, and hopeful, all in the best ways possible. It really elevates this arc for me, and I just loved the ending, man. That shit got me tearing up so hard. It's easily one of the best endings to a One Piece arc that has now probably been ruined because of lobotomy piece. And not to mention this great location we have here. See, a great thing about the Alabasta saga as a whole is that Oda is getting more in tune with creating imaginative locations. I mean, in East Blue, it was just a town, another town, another town but with oranges. But here we got a good variety. Cactus town, giant town, snow biome. We have a good mix going on right now, and I really like how much Oda is growing as a world designer. Despite that, you can definitely see stark shifts in quality as we move forward. And while this is very normal for a long-running shonen, it's much more noticeable with One Piece, as when we put it in a graph, my enjoyment when reading One Piece looks... yeah, like that. Not only that, but I feel like there's less of an incentive to come back to certain arcs, other than looking back to see some key things they set up, or maybe a moment here or there that was cool. For example, even if you don't love every arc in Hunter x Hunter, each one of them is so different tonally, conceptually, and structurally that you can always appreciate what they're trying to do, and you feel much more of an incentive to go back and reevaluate your thoughts. With One Piece, because most of the major arcs follow a similar story structure, it makes that separation in quality that much more apparent, and it makes it difficult to go back and reread certain arcs. None of these arcs have been terrible, but some have been a slog for one reason or another. But overall, I still like this saga. And... okay, yes, finally. We finally made it to Alabasta. Okay, so Alabasta is a little bit tricky for me. I feel like there's a lot about this arc that I just kind of tend to forget about. I feel like there was a lot of downtime during this arc, or a lot of setting up to do in a saga that already had a lot of setup. And I also found certain parts of this arc a bit flimsy. I don't want to get too into it, but I felt like there were certain pieces of dialogue that felt a bit corny, and some people might eat me in the comments, but even some moments that were just a little melodramatic for my taste. But for those two criticisms, I couldn't tell if that was just me or if I was still getting used to One Piece's writing style, which, if you haven't read it yet, it has a more direct and exaggerated style of dialogue. But I mean, there's a lot to like about this arc. I think Ace's introduction was awesome. I really like Ace. I like his powers and his fire. He has a cool hat. I like Ace, he's cool. We get reintroduced to Smoker and Tashigi, you know, the Marines are here. You'll also notice that the art up to this point has changed quite a bit. Not drastically, but you'll notice the line art is a bit thinner and kind of looser. The body types and overall proportions of characters are getting more distinct. I feel like right now the drawings overall are getting more detailed and dynamic. This arc all around kind of brought a new standard for One Piece. The scale of this arc feels so much bigger than anything that came before, and this feels like the first proper One Piece arc. 150 chapters in, wow. Like, sure, we've had Arlong Park and all this other stuff, but this kind of set a more defined idea for how One Piece arcs would go moving forward. The catastrophic problem, the crew splitting up into their own separate fights while Luffy battles it out against the big man, the huge rising climax, the good triumphs over evil. A lot of these things were present in previous arcs, but now feel more potent. And finally, we get a threatening villain. The head of the Baroque works, Mr. Zero, better known as Crocodile.
Did you really think you were my equal? There have been any number of rookies like you who've challenged me, and you've all shared a common trait. The only thing you are truly qualified for is death.
Crocodile may not be the most deep or complex villain, as what he's mainly trying to do is just take over Alabasta and get his hands on this ancient weapon known as a poneglyph. Not super innovative stuff, but what makes him stand out are two things. One, he's got swag. Look at these fucking dorks that we've had in every arc beforehand, other than maybe Arlong, right? And then you look at this Chad, this ideal man we got here. He's got a good sense of fashion, a cool scar, slick back mafia hair, and a hook! Now that's what I call a villain. Secondly, he shifts the tone of the story in a very particular way. Luffy throughout this arc is talking about how much he wants to kick Crocodile's ass. He sees how much pain he's causing Vivi and the rest of the people in Alabasta, basically causing this whole war to break out. This makes him pissed. He's angry. His fists are getting antsy. Come on, some of the dialogue is a little corny. I mentioned this briefly in the last video, but Luffy has been punching his way through everything, and it's worked very well in his favor. So finally comes the time to fight Crocodile. He's gonna do his thing. He's gonna beat the villain. Classic One Piece style. Oh. That's fun. This is a great shift in tone, all thanks to the buildup. We've associated Luffy as this overpowered, can do no wrong kind of guy. So, seeing him finally get humbled shows us two things. One, Crocodile is the real deal. He's not like the goofy villains from before. He means business. Not just him, but the Grand Line means business. Look at the title of the chapter. Look at the title of chapter 178. The Grand Line means business. He's using all the tricks that worked on East Blue villains, and they're just not working in his favor, showing there's gonna be more foes in the future that will truly test Luffy's skills. After this defeat, Luffy realizes, damn, I gotta think of an actual strategy that isn't just punching people. And he loses not once, but twice, until finally the third time where he finally beats Crocodile, and it feels that much more worth it. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is shonen. Alabasta throughout is definitely the most tense arc so far. This is a genuine war occurring as Vivi does her best to stop it. Towards the end of the arc, we get an amazing climax with a character named Pell. Pell is a guard of the Alabasta Kingdom and is said to be the strongest warrior of them all. Pell is someone who knew Vivi for a long time and served to protect her and Alabasta. In the climax, there is a bomb that is said to destroy all of Alubarna, which is the capital of Alabasta, and Pell decides to take the nuke and sacrifice himself for his people and for Alabasta. This is such a unique turn to take for One Piece. One Piece climaxes at this point have always done their job to bring you into a happier place at the end. So for Alabasta to end like this feels so strong, cementing a sad yet triumphant ending for this arc. Oh! Well, would you look at that? He survived! Wow! Oda. What the fuck are you doing?
Sorry. No, don't just be sorry. Think for one fucking second. The fuck are you doing?
I'm sorry, One Piece fans. I know you're sick of hearing about it. It's not a new take, or in fact, it's a very cold one. But man, I just can't help it because there is so much wrong with this. Number one, this could have been one of the best moments in the series. Him sacrificing himself for Alabasta would have been such a cool moment, and people would have probably liked him way more. He probably would have been a maybe more popular character. People would have been like, bro, Pell is so cool, and then get called overrated on Twitter. That's the dream. But no, he's just greatly injured, I guess, and now nobody fucking cares about him. 2. This was such a golden opportunity to tie back to certain ideas of One Piece that were presented in this saga. In Chopper's backstory, before Hiralik dies, he says that a man is dead when he's forgotten, not when he is shot. In Alabasta, Luffy talks about how people just die at war, and that's just how it is. Sure, he wants to help Vivi and prevent all that in the end, but Luffy is right. There is gonna be some casualties in the end. Having Pell die would just bring these somber ideas full circle, some nice symbolic shit. 3. Everything in this moment here was building towards the expectation that Pell would die. The whole fucking chapter has his final words and everything. Why in the fuckity fuck are you going to even attempt to give us an emotional payoff like this and just not go through with it? Like, it feels like it feels like a cheap trick, like to get people to cry over this, only to just not go through with it. And that's what people don't like about deaths, One Piece fans. It's not because they don't happen, it's because Oda does try to make them happen, and then just doesn't do it. And finally, number 4, it just makes no sense. Like, even by fucking One Piece standards, this shit makes no sense. This bomb was supposed to blow up all of Alubarna, and then he takes it face first, and it still comes out, he still comes out alive. What? So by that logic, if everyone else got hit by the bomb, I guess they would be fine? And One Piece fans, please, just stop. Just stop trying to find some logic as to how Pell somehow survived this explosion. Like, they're just grasping at straws with some of these arguments. Can we just accept that this was just a really dumb decision made by Oda? Because if this were any other show, then a scene like this would make them the laughingstock of the anime community. But because it's One Piece, there has to be some logic behind it, because One Piece can do no wrong. What's that? Oh, Pell was just... he was just really durable. That's how he survived. Yes, of course. Dumbass! Yes, you too can survive a nuke to the fucking face if you're just really durable. And if you're really, really durable, you might just be able to tank a fucking meteor as well. I will admit it. I was trying to soften the blows when it came to certain parts of the saga by being like, oh, it's not terrible. There were just certain parts that were kind of a drag, and I wasn't a fan of this. But this? No. This is fucking stupid. This will probably go down as the worst moment in all of One Piece. I hate this. Okay, now that I'm done ranting, let's evaluate this arc, shall we? The Alabasta arc is kinda conflicting for me, but overall it's pretty good. I don't hold it to the massive acclaim that everyone else does, but I think the highs of Alabasta made the journey there worth it in the end, even through that. At this point of the story, Alabasta is kind of the best arc in the series, but it kind of feels like it's the best by default, you know? Just because it is kind of the most important arc so far, because it feels the most high stakes, has the biggest connection to the wider world, has the biggest scale, things like that. But I actually do firmly believe that out of all of these arcs that we've been through so far, I feel like I would get the most out of rereading this one, because it gave us Crocodile, Luffy's epic moments, a tense feeling of warfare, a scale in this story we haven't seen before, and Ace. Sure, I thought it was not the most engaging at times. Some of the dialogue may be a bit corny or even melodramatic. Oh, and did I mention I hate this part? But like I said before, this was the first big One Piece arc and really showed what kind of scale the series was capable of. I think at worst, I would give Alabasta like a B tier. But because of the things I mentioned before, I think I can bump it up to an A tier. Maybe like an A-. Now it's time to evaluate the Alabasta Saga. Yeah, not the arc, the saga, you know what I mean. It's hard to say with this arc overall, but I will say it was definitely better than East Blue. Yeah, I know, the arc I complained about for half the video is still better than the arc I had very few strong criticisms against. Aren't I such a prankster? If you saw my last video, it was pretty clear that there wasn't a whole lot to say about East Blue. Sure, if you get into the nitty-gritty, there's definitely some conversation to be had, but save for some low points here and there, overall, it's a good start to the series and is fun to look back on. The Alabasta Saga, on the other hand, is a much different beast, and just invokes stronger opinions out of me for better or for worse. But that to me is inherently more valuable. this is the saga where One Piece really started to find its footing. Like I mentioned in the last video, before, the story of One Piece was very light. There wasn't really that much happening other than key setups or the formation of the crew, but now it seems like we're really getting somewhere. There were parts or even arcs of this saga I didn't really enjoy too much, but the overall journey to Alabasta, looking back, was very cathartic. It did have some of the best moments of the series so far, and I feel like One Piece's world building starts to pay off a bit more as previous characters come back, fan favorites get introduced, and the Grand Line really starts to show what it's made of. And it's at this point where One Piece is showing us a much clearer idea of what kind of story it's trying to tell. So with that in mind, I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this record.